What's going on, everybody? We are here in Kansas, and I am hype. I am on 1 hour of sleep, just off the plane. I don't come out and show my legs for anybody, right? So this is we're making this happen. But I wanted to just say I couldn't be happier to be on this stage here in the beautiful Kansas with the beach behind us, with two good friends, but also individuals that I am truly inspired by and have been inspired by for a really long time. So being up here is an honor. So, ladies and gentlemen, Danny Robinson, Chief Creative Officer at the Martin Agency out of Richmond. And right here, we actually have Monique Nielsen, CEO of Uniworld Group, UWG, out of New York. And I am Walter Gear, Chief Experience Design Officer at VML Y&R. How you both doing today?
How great can it be? We're awesome.
I'm on the beach.
Facts. On the beach. That's all that matters, man. And I'm not sweating yet, which is good.
It will.
All right, so check us out. I'm gonna get right into it, right? And I'll start with you, Monique, actually here. So questions right here on my phone. Came prepared. So what is the top 2 to 3 things that you attribute to your success as a black executive? And I say as a black executive because it's most certainly different, right? So what would you say is 2 to 3 things?
2 to 3 things. One, just resilience. Just having to, work as hard as you can all the time. Searching for excellence, not perfection, but excellence, and setting a bar for what you want. And then I think the last thing is just being really thoughtful about team. Team has been the fuel for everything, and ensuring that our team believes in our purpose is key to success for any executive, but certainly as a black executive, your team is really important when the rest of the world's telling you not so much.
Yeah, I would agree to that. Denny, yourself, I'm going to pass it to you, man. Same question.
I was lucky enough to have people who saw something in me and believed in me and took, I guess at that point in my career, a chance on me more than once. So having allies that maybe saw some things in me that I didn't necessarily see was critical for particularly early in my career. But even most recently, my CEO, Kristen, put me in a role before this role that I would have never, frankly, I wasn't interested in it when she asked me, but she convinced me that it was something that would help me get better and something that the agency needed. So having allies, some people in your corner, particularly when I was young. I think the second thing, I used to be the proponent of you find something you love and work you love and you'll never work a day in your life. I don't believe that at all anymore. Because I have a lot of passions, but I don't think those passions would have necessarily paid any bills. So I learned somewhere in the middle of my career that maybe it's a better idea to find something that I'm good at and then channel maybe my passion toward that. So I've been successful enough to be able to take things I really like. Now, Steve Jobs, his passions were dance and calligraphy and Western art.
I didn't know that.
Or Western history. He channeled that into marketing and engineering and tech. I channeled my passion for art and writing into a career. I'm a painter, but I was going to be a starving artist. So it was really find something that I was good at. When you're good, you get positive reinforcement. You feel better about it. You get better at it. And I've told my kids, don't forget your passion. But because you want to sing doesn't mean you can for a living. So, channel the passion.
I love that, man. Channel the passion. And no, I'm going to actually tee that off with something else. And I'll go to you, Monique. Success is an interesting thing, how we define it, right? I think that, for many years when you're earlier on in your career, success is defined by the money you make, your title, the car, like material things, right? But I think that as we get older, and especially as a black executive, you start to rethink about what's really important and what isn't. Especially when you start to have children, right? So my question to you is how do you define success, or what does success look like to you?
I just so love this question because I've had this pivot over the last few years of my career. And one of the things that I can honestly say has defined success is when I see our former employees become our clients.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There's just something so amazing about seeing a full circle moment So we have a couple of clients that are actually UWG alums. So that's just incredibly warming. And then I see UWG alums in other places at other agencies doing amazing work. And there's something so special about that too, because I know that we've injected, the UWG way
Yep.
in how they do things, and we know that that bears fruit in many, many areas. And whether you stay in advertising or you go on the brand side or you do something completely different, there's something so special about that. And for me now, yeah, success is defined by our influence, where we stand. And because we've been around for 53 years, that is, a marker of a generation of influence that we've put on the world. So really exciting.
Well, I want to jump on that for a second, because when you talk about your influence, like for the people that are watching that don't know who UWG is, I mean, you might want to give them a little bit of that, because for you guys to go out and get into those client positions and then create influence as Black individuals at these places, that when you come back, that goes into the work and everything, and that's really important, right?
It is. No, it's critical, right? There's no way to do that without really, investing in the whole piece. And Uniworld Group, UWG, is the longest standing multicultural marketing and advertising consultancy. We believe in the world. We're going to celebrate 53 years in
Congrats.
July. Thank you. And we have 3 practices. We have our advertising and marketing. We have our Global Reflections, which is our DEI practice, and then we now have our first year, we're finishing up the Nile, which is name, image, likeness, equity, and empowerment for our college athletes that are our Black and brown college athletes. So really, really proud of that. We just finished the NIL Summit, the first one last week at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, and I was just honored to be around 300 amazing college athletes. So don't be, if you see me in a college classroom, you'll know what happened. I was totally smitten by these wonderful, intelligent, excited, driven athletes, and I'm excited to be in that space.
That's amazing. I got to ask you, Danny, success, man, how do you define it?
Differently now than 10, 20, 30 years ago. At this point, for me, success has been able to get to where I am without leaving any of myself behind, right?
Big one.
Yeah, it's and I can say this now, and I said it then, but it was, I don't know how much I really believed it, but I used to say if it's just a job, that's all. If it's not the thing that's right for me, if I don't feel like I'm getting treated fairly, if I don't think I'm being rewarded fairly, it's just a job, I can go find another one. Now, it's easier now to say that, because I know there were times in my life that would have been a hard decision to make, and sometimes I had to make them. But to be able to just eventually figure out who I am, that journey, and look back and truly believe that I brought all of me with me and didn't have to compromise very much at all, if at all, to find success. Yeah.
So I love how you talked about, being you, right? And kind of like staying with that, throughout your career. So let me ask you then, what do you see as like some of the biggest, like what was the biggest hurdle or challenge that you've been presented with, like on the way to the top? Because we know getting to where you both are in our space, I mean, there's not many, right? So it's difficult, right? So there had to have been like that one moment or that one challenge where you kind of had to kind of go on pause for a minute, right?
Man, it's ongoing. My biggest hurdle was and continues to be fighting the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked about it at my agency in front of everyone. It's a constant battle, and the battle is not that big. Make it sound bigger than it is, but it's being able to get over it, or to continue to remind myself that I am here because I'm supposed to be here, and believing my own thoughts and convincing myself that is true. That's for me the biggest barrier. It's been internal, and I think for most people the biggest hurdles and barriers for us and success is maybe internal more than it is external. Certainly there are external barriers. It's not like there aren't things in the way, but for me it was my own head getting out of it sometimes.
Monique, what about yourself?
I mean, having been on both sides, I've been on the brand side, I've been in global roles, and then probably the biggest hurdle being at Uniworld Group and UWG was the fact that you would walk into a room and they would assume that you were less than, right? You can't do the big stuff, right? You can't handle, the tech stuff, right? There's just some misnomer around us just, singing and dancing, right? No depth, no understanding, no insight, no strategies. So for us and for me, the biggest hurdle has been really disproving that, showing that excellence comes in all forms. And that we can contribute in different ways, and that inclusion does make it better. So just our point of view is more than enough. But yeah, we continue in that battle right now. So whether it's imposter or it's kind of the same kind of thing of really walking in, having to really know, I can, I will, I have no room for error, which is kind of a bad thing, right? Because everyone's fallible. So we've just got to continue to work on whether or not we want to accept that and move it forward.
So we are in a wild moment the past couple years, right? A wild one. And even now, recently, in my new role as chief executive, I find that challenging because now I feel like I have to come with something different, right? It's the way you present yourself. It's the work that you produce. It's how you go out into the real world and promote yourself and all of that, right? So my question to you both is, you both have been in this role for quite some time now. I'm new, right? So do you feel that the moment we are in now, that we are having such a big conversation around diversity and the importance of diversity, has now created additional challenges? Because I've felt then the many times where you're in the room and now you feel like you have to speak up, and if you don't say something, then that's a problem. But then you feel that there's this burden on you now, to some extent, and I hate to say burden, but like you feel like you have to continuously be there to say something, and you have to always speak up. So my thought, like, does that make like a challenging?
Why are you pointing to me? I don't have to say anything anymore, and I do when I want to. Well. Yeah, I know you talked about a hot commodity and black and brown talent, particularly recently being a hot commodity. And I was looking at there are hot commodities right now, like commodities. But at some point they cool off, and there's a drawback. And I say we should take advantage of the moment, frankly, because you never know when that. There's going to be a glut. If we do the job right, it will not be a hot commodity because there will be plenty of people in the market, right?
That's right.
But right now, we're still working toward that. I say if you get in the room, you get in the room because you wanted to get there. I say you have an obligation to speak up, and I say don't worry about how you speak up, because I'll go back to, if you speak up and it's not accepted the way you think it should be, either have a conversation about that or find a place that aligns with who you are, and we'll be okay with that. But if you're in the room, yeah, it's an obligation, and you can't ask for a seat at the table and then get there and say, well, I'm just going to watch.
Right.
Eat at the table and feast and have the conversation and take advantage of the moment. And what we're trying to do, I think, is bring as many people to that table as we can. I'd love it when there's a point where we are not a hot commodity.
That's right.
Just we are, one of many.
Yeah, one of many. No, I think it's, not to piggyback on that a little bit, just to say, yes, this is lightning in a bottle, right? This was a moment. This was 1969 in 2020, right? It was that wave of like, oh, we have a moment here to take advantage of, and I think we must. And to Danny's point, if we do this right over, what are we in the junior year of 2020? So what is that, 3 years in? So if we, continue to pull in and really grow that pool of talent. I mean, our biggest challenge right now is making sure that the talent we get in stays in, is supported, right? That they have the proper resources to be able to be where we are and enjoy the fruits of this wonderful industry that we have such an obligation to be a part of, right? I think I talk about this all the time, but you see more advertising than you see of anything else. It critically shapes how you feel, what you do, what you mean to the world, and we need to be more represented, right? So it's just critical that we do that.
So you both talked about, the importance of having us in the room and the importance of retainment, right? Retaining this talent. So I'm going to pivot to this question. I feel like there's a lot of black talent right now that kind of feels like, you know what, I don't need to be here, right? And feels like, I can go over to another, agency that, quite frankly, sees things the way I see. Like your agency, right? They might say, I can go to a black agency, black-owned agency, and I know that my ideas are going to be taken well here. I don't have to feel as though I go out here and have to press for my ideas or explain why someone like Nas makes sense in this campaign or versus Kendrick Lamar, right? So my question to you is, what do you tell those individuals that are sitting on that line and thinking about, well, maybe I should just go over to this, a black agency, or maybe I should just go over here and do my own thing and just freelance, because quite a lot are actually doing that, right?
Well, I wouldn't stop anyone from going to work at any black-owned agency, and I certainly wouldn't tell people not to take a shot at doing your own thing.
That's right.
That's great. But I would also say if we believe on aggregate we have an obligation to move the whole thing forward, you might need to explain to a group why Nas is right for this campaign. If you feel that it's important to you that things change, the entire thing changes.
That's right.
And I think I see that it's changing. It's changing because there are more of us in the industry, not tons, but more. It's also changing because a lot of the younger people in the industry are coming up, having been exposed to things that just weren't true 20 years ago.
That's right.
To our culture, because it's universal. It's part of it. They can't not be exposed to the culture, black culture, because we are the things driving a lot of. I won't say most, because there's country, but we're driving a lot of the. Yes, we're even there. That's true. We are the fodder for a lot of the things that are coming out of the industry. So, all avenues are open. I think again, it goes back to what are you trying to do for you? What are you trying to find for you? And where's your value? I think I maybe took the harder road and said I'm gonna try to make other people aware, and see how far I can push in that way. But look, there's so many, and we're speaking for advertising mostly. There unfortunately for them, there are lots of creative avenues that exist that never existed before. Didn't exist when I was around. There are options. Twitter, Facebook, Meta, Snap. There are options, and I don't begrudge anybody expanding that worldview and trying to find the thing that's right for them.
Monique, thank you, man. Monique?
So I think organizations are so different, and they will continue to be different. And I couldn't agree more with Danny in terms of find what's right for you. I know personally when I left Motorola and I got to Uniworld Group and walked in those doors, I got to tell you, honestly, I never knew that I was wearing my skin to work until I got someplace that I absolutely could feel it didn't matter, right? So it was very warming. It was very inviting. I certainly felt freer to have conversations and drive campaigns in ways that I wasn't able to do in my, general market type of role. While I was always culturally relevant because I was global, right? There was always a sensitivity to that. But certainly dedicating your time and your life to strictly undervalued, underserved, and overlooked communities is a unique organization, right? So that still has to be something that you're comfortable doing. It's been hard for my team the last few years, right? It's been emotional, right? Every time a black man gets shot, right? Every time an Asian person gets shot, every time, a Latinx person is, endangered, we are suffering as a group because we are disproportionately them. So there's different care that I have to take for my team, and belonging in other organizations are trying to get there, and we're encouraging them to do so, whether that be in small pockets or they can find community to have that kind of support because it's necessary, right? Our organization is going to overtly be there for you in those moments, whereas other organizations, it may be covert, but we still think it's important that you have that if you're going to be a truly diverse organization.
Love that. Thank you. So I'm going to go back because a couple minutes ago, you both were actually talking about the confidence to speak up, right? Confidence to speak up in rooms and whatnot. That's a difficult thing for a lot of people to do. So recently, about a week ago, I did a post on LinkedIn, And the question I asked my folks there was, have you ever been involved in an incident where something racist might have been said or inappropriate might have been said in a conversation, and you then took that as an opportunity to say something, or have you not? And what was interesting is like 90+% of the people, there was like a couple hundred people that responded, 90+% said they did not say something and felt bad about it, but the reason why they didn't say something is because there was an executive that said that, or executive was on the call as well, and they didn't say anything. So this uncomfortable moment of, well, that was weird. Should I say something? Should I say not? I'm not going to, because if I do, I might get fired, right? Or some type of retaliation. And this is a hard question, right? So I'll just tee that up with that. How do you foster, as leaders, how do you foster environments where people feel it's okay to say something? Where people say, it's okay for me to say, you know what, you shouldn't have said that. That's probably inappropriate. Or can you tell me what you meant by that, right? Thoughts on that? And this is a hard one. This is not easy.
Well, I mean, me personally, I couldn't imagine not saying something, but I want to be very, very thoughtful. It's really a skill, and it must and should be trained in folks how to have a hard conversation and give really, really intentional feedback. And if it's a senior executive, maybe it's not in front of everyone, right? Maybe that is a moment where you kind of wait till the end, ask that executive to step to the side, have that conversation with them directly, or have it with a trusted, colleague, right? There are other ways to do that, right? Whereas, Danny and I and you most certainly could sit in that room in front of God and everybody and say, flag on the play, inappropriate, and let's make this a learning moment. Depending on where you are in the organization, that may not be possible, right? And to your point, career suicide, unnecessarily so, depending on what happened.
Yeah. Danny?
I agree. We've spent tons and tons of time training tools that people can use to do that without doing it directly. Online tools, you can do that indirectly. Even still, and we've been having this conversation and training for years, people still don't speak up. We find out later, like, well, why didn't you say something? Because I believe, at least, I hope I'm not naive in thinking this, that Kristen and I, my CO partner and I, have fostered a culture of open and honest feedback. We talk about it a lot. We do it. We by example.
Right.
Now, again, it is different that the CEO and the CCO are doing it. But I like to believe that continued training and continued conversation and reminding people, you have to tell people things over and over and over and over again for it for them to hear it the first time it appears sometimes. And also not forget that you hire new people weekly and monthly. What you said last month may not apply to 30 new people. So you have to, it's an ongoing thing.
And modeling is
yes,
really
you got modeling is important. And then deciding, well, if it's not a place I feel like I can do that, is it a place that I should stay?
There you go.
I mean, think about what's important to you, and if you, and I would guess if you did speak out and you got fired, you probably shouldn't have been there, right?
Not.
I mean, it's
probably
just probably not the right place for anyone.
Right.
Again, easy to say when
It's not you.
when you're not 30.
Exactly.
To your point, though, it is a muscle that you have to work, right? It's like exercise, and you got to get at it. And it's, God forbid, I mean, that's not a muscle you want to work often, hopefully, right? But it's something I think for a lot of people, it's catching it and just having a little bit of confidence to just say something. And I love what you said about the right moment, too, because for an executive, it might be like going to the side, maybe having that conversation afterwards instead of embarrassing them and put them on the spot, because then, of course, they might rebut and whatnot.
Well, and everybody's sensitive, right? Let's be really
it's
clear, right? And everyone could make that right? And we've all done it. And so we all would love the grace to be able to either course correct, right? Because at that point it becomes, well, what are you going to do about it, right? If it's done in private, then what you want to say is, well, how are you going to now come back to that particular group of people and let them know that?
And on the flip side, it would be great if you did it and you saw the kind of company you work for, too.
That's right.
I mean, I talked about the leaving side, but if you did speak up and you saw the kind of response you expected, I think it would probably confirm maybe this is a place I can be, and this is the kind of modern company agency I should be working for. So there's that. I mean, the hope that something good happens maybe that should be the thought going in, not what might happen to me, but yeah, what might happen for me.
Love that. Love that. So last question I'm going to ask before we actually wrap. It's for the both of you. There might be a lot of younger black and brown individuals that are watching and see you both in themselves and see you as, this is what I want to be when I grow up, or this is what I want to be later in my career. So what bits of advice would you both give to those individuals that are looking to be exactly what it is that you're doing, CEO, CCO?
There are many paths. Mine was incredibly crooked.
Yes.
I like that you said that, because that's important, because everybody thinks it's like this one path. There's so many different ways.
I'm all over the place. Starting with, I started as a client, so I didn't even know that this was going to be a thing. So there are many paths. The advice I usually give is, it's just really important to figure out what it is you want for you. I never said I wanted to be a chief creative officer. My goal was always, the next thing needs to just be better than the last thing and closer to what some kind of ideal I think I have, even though I don't know what that is. I'm not one of those, what do you want to be in 5 years guy. I'm going to have a ham sandwich tomorrow. And that's about as far in the future as I'm going to think, maybe not even tomorrow. So what is it you think you want? Mm-hmm. And, talk to as many people doing that thing as you can to figure out, because you ultimately see there are a lot of ways to get to someplace. And, it's like an Uber. I want to go here I am. Whole lot of routes. Find out which one might work for you.
Monique?
I appreciate that. Yeah, I too, very crooked. A direct line would have been a whole lot easier, but a whole lot less fun, right? The fun is in the journey. My one piece of advice is, I think probably for Danny and I both, we continue to stay curious. We continue to learn all the time. The one thing about this industry is it's great for people with ADD and ADHD. If you don't want to do the same thing every day, it's a really great space to continue to get fed and reinvigorated and do new and exciting things. And that's what keeps me in this creative industry. I started in sales and, very direct, dry sales, paper. And while that was cool, I'm still selling, but just not that. And I think every experience, take a piece of it, keep it with you. It will come in handy. If anyone's not seen Slumdog Millionaire, I highly recommend it. It is a true retrospective on how life happens and how those key things just pop at the right time. So just keep living.
Love it. I love it. So one thing that we all have in common is we all has that crooked path, right? Because mine was very similar. So we'll end with that. My advice I'd probably say is just be yourself and be you, because my God, it is exhausting showing up as somebody else, like 40 plus, 60, 70 plus hours a week. We'll call it whatever, agency hours, 80, 90, whatever. But with that being said, though, this has been amazing. You both are really inspiring. I love you both. Thank you so much. Danny, Monique, this has been incredible. Thank you, LinkedIn, for having us at the WPP Beach. And we are signing off.
Bye, everyone. Awesome.
That was amazing. Good stuff. You guys are good, man. This is easy. I just got to lob it to you guys. You both just dunk it.